your approach. The approach gotta be more gorilla on it.
Chuck, I want to come back to you. We've been having this conversation as we've been leading up to this event about entrepreneurship on the phone. And one of the things that you continue to point out is some of the shortcomings or some of the obstacles that stand in the way of young people being able to maximize the entrepreneurial possibilities. Can you share some of that with the audience?
Well, I guess in common relevant terms, I guess I got to be the hater. Because when you talk hip-hop entrepreneurship from a national standpoint, which turns everybody out, I think increasingly we got to watch out that this is pretty much diametrically opposed. I think when people just say, okay, like Russell Simmons, we got to answer coming to Kansas City, talking to people in Kansas City, okay, what does this mean for you? And how do you involve yourself into this so-called billion-dollar world of hip-hop with the skills you may have? And how do you turn that inspiration into participation in the interaction? Number one, if you get no help from your community, I think it's damn near impossible to build a business from a hip-hop standpoint.
There you go.
So, look, first of all, you gotta know your history. Let's kind of get rid of the hip hop term. And if we talked about culture, which is the thing that is a universal language that brings human beings together for our similarities and knocks aside the differences. The history of the culture alone in this city goes way deeper than hip hop, but still has lineage where we can draw from some of those experiences of learning about that past.
Right.
You know, jazz is in this city and had a foothold for a certain reason. In this country, you talk about businesses, corporations. In a way, when you look at black businesses or black community, these structures which operate from LA and New York seem like to kind of ignore the middle, and when they finally acknowledge the middle, they suck it up to make somebody say, well, I can't exist in my own town. Just to boil it down, it's like if somebody has a hip hop act out here, I worked with the hip hop for years out here. The fact that they make music here and can't get on Kansas City radio, it's a waste of time trying to have it. You cannot build a business in your community if you have no community support in the educational circles,
Yes.
the business circles,
Yes.
and damn sure if you ain't on the radio, which was number one the broadcast to large, numbers of people within the radius. I think the problem is that we have to understand we have to act locally, but think globally. Now we have the internet, so you can go global on the net, but the problem is that you don't have a foothold in the foundation if you can't do real things on the local tip. So this is a severe problem. It's one thing to say, oh, Russell Simmons, but in a way, naming Russell Simmons for somebody coming up in Kansas City is a weapon of mass distraction. Because it doesn't answer to that person, how do they get involved with a multi-billion-dollar business? Serious, I'm telling y'all straight out. In LA and New York, which is the corporate headquarters of all the media in this country, besides DC Beltway politics, the only thing somebody from Kansas City is good for is being a country bumpkin consumer to them. If you can't buy something, you don't mean nothing to them. Let me tell you as a case point. As far as the music business is concerned, there's been hotbed situations that sprouted up, whether you say soul music, R&B, or up to rap, like for example, Master P in New Orleans, you had Atlanta, which is, okay, you have Texas, you have Detroit with Motown, DC with Go-Go, Minneapolis with Atmosphere and those guys, the Bay Area, Chicago with Electric Blues, Memphis with Stax, Florida with Luke before P came along. Master P came in a situation where he put out records in a region that nobody wanted. So when he started distributing in his region, Universal, which is located in Los Angeles and New York, they, number one, wanted that region. They created Cash Money. And they created Cash Money with the sole intent to put Master P out of business. Now, of course, many of y'all said, well, what went from to hot in 3 years? Because he said, well, it wasn't just going from no limit to juvenile. It went from take the black business out with a corporation and then dominate the radio waves. So you say this must be the hot new thing. That's the national game that goes on. The local game that goes on is that if rap music and hip hop is a 25-year recording business, right? How the hell do you not have 50% of the artists from Kansas City get on Kansas City radio? It's one thing calling a local, listen, it's one thing calling a local radio station here in Lil Wayne and Beyonce, but a school in Kansas City ain't gonna have Lil Wayne and Beyonce come there because they don't have the time because they're national artists. It only behooves the local area to create local stars so they can visit the hospital, the community, the youth center, talking to you. But if you can't make stars in your own radius and locale, and Sweetie G talks to this, he's a singing MC that was a star in Queens that would talk to a high school in Queens, and people say, wow, because he was on the radio just like everybody else. Last but not least, we have another obstacle. The obstacle is called the Booty and Thug Network, and that's BET. It's spelled just like that. Because it's national, that makes a harder job for local radio to stand out, because somebody say, oh, I hear this artist from Kansas City, but I don't see you on BET next to Lil Wayne or whatever, because these artists are propped up and nationally financed to put black people out of business. So when you talk about hip-hop entrepreneurship, it's a fight against corporations that assume the black identity by gobbling up the airwaves and then defining what hip-hop is so you can follow just like the Pied Piper. If you don't change that, and Lisa has ways to change that, you gotta identify who's making decisions for you in your community. R. Kelly, I remember years ago, R. Kelly was already making records in Chicago. Couldn't get on Chicago radio. He had to sign the Jive in New York to get big in Chicago. These games have been played for 30 to 50 years, and they gotta stop because that's turning black people, that's turning the community, that's turning the hip hop community into robots. Y'all been participating and creating things here for 70 years, going back to Big Joe Curry. How the heck does the creativity in Kansas City don't get exposed in the states of Kansas, Missouri, Iowa? At least that those 4 or 5 state radius need to be saturated with the talent from here and backed and endorsed by the situations that's able to get behind it and fund it, because that's what helps the community and that's what gives you the lifeline to get involved, because you see it directly in front of your face instead of looking at a TV, because a TV might as well be a cartoon. You want to see real things from real people with real talk in front of your face, and that's where the community has to fight the airwaves. All right.
The approach gotta be more gorilla on it.